Hi everyone, I hope that you all are having a fantastic week and thank you so much for joining me tonight as part of the Pittston Memorial Library's Teen and Tween programming for Valentine's Day. We're going to be making flower pens. So that's going to be a lot of fun. There are a few steps involved, so I just gonna say, like, all of you just kind of bear with me, but I believe in you. You guys can totally handle this. Like I said, this program is for teens and tweens, but if any adults or families are tuning in and they want to give this one a try, I definitely welcome you to do that. It's pretty neat, and I think that you get a really nice product at the end, maybe to keep for yourself, or maybe you want to give it away. All of the products that I'm going to be using here are really accessible, and as I'm talking, I'm just going to try to kind of interject here and there where you can make some modifications and things. All of the ideas that I'm using are open to interpretation, just so you kind of get the general idea of what I'm doing. Okay, so without further ado, let's get right into it and talk about the supplies. So the first thing that you're going to need are some book pages. One might do you, maybe two, it depends on the size. We're also going to be using some scrapbook paper. We've chosen a pink one here because we're going to be making flowers. You're also going to need either some buttons, or we have like little rhinestone stickers that we got from the dollar store. You're also going to need just your standard fare of scissors and Modge Podge. I know that we've talked about this before in other programs, and I don't know if anyone's invested in any, but we just use it a lot. So if you're going to be crafting with us, I would just, advise that you might want to consider investing in it, because it is a little bit more durable for some projects, and this one is got a gloss on it, so it just protects the products a little bit better. We're going to use that. I'm also recommending a glue gun for those of you that have one. It's going to make it a little bit easier to glue everything together, because it's going to work a little bit more instantaneously. If you have tacky glue, you might want to try that too, but again, it might just not have the same quick sticking ability that you're going to need. You're also going to need, of course, an ink pen, the star of our show. So this is just a standard Bic pen. You can, of course, use any old pen that you have in the drawer. Just make sure that it works. That's really the only thing that you have to worry about. And so we're going to take the cap off this guy. You might want to hang on to the cap, but by the time we're done, I'm not sure that it will fit back on. It might. It kind of depends on the layers. But let's get into it. So we're going to put him on the side for a second. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make our Modge Podge water slurry. So I've done this before in a couple other videos, and I don't know if you can kind of see, it's a little bit of like an even mixture of water and glue. It's just to kind of make a little bit of a sticky mixture here. And we're going to take our paper, our book pages from before. So I cut this one a little bit smaller, and then I cut them into about 1-inch strips. The first thing that we're going to have to do is wrap our ink pen, because our ink pen is going to act as our faux stem. So that's what we're going to do first. So let's submerge our paper right there into the glue. It should be sticky enough. If for some reason you feel that you got the mixtures a little bit wrong, you can go ahead and add more glue. It's not going to harm it at all. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to, once that gets all nice and submerged in our mixture, is we're going to start wrapping it around our ink pen. And I want to add that this is going to be really forgiving. So if you, for any reason, like make a little mistake and it starts to rip or something like that, no worries, because that's kind of the point in a way. We want the paper to be really malleable, really adaptable to, adhering itself to the ink pen there. So if you make a little tear or whatever, you can just kind of patch it with your Modge Podge water mixture there. So we're going to keep doing that all the way down our pen. And we're going to kind of want to keep everything to a nice even layer. If you can help it, don't, oops, see, I already ripped it, but that's all right. Try to keep the layer relatively thin going down, just so that you get a nice smooth surface. And you can even make your strips a little bit longer than I did. That was just the piece that I had. And then you're just going to continue going all the way down your pen, like so. And this should only take a few strips. And when you get it all covered, you're just going to want to kind of go over the area and make sure that there's no lumps and bumps, and just kind of smooth everything out as best as you can. And if you happen to miss a tiny spot at the top, we're not too concerned about that, because we want to go back in and we're going to make our flower at that area. So for the most part, everything's going to be nice and covered. But now we're going to wait for this to dry. So I'm going to turn off the camera for a second, and then we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. So our pen is all nice and dry. I kind of want to take this opportunity to add, if you're a patient like me and you kind of want to move along to the next step, and at least make your pen able to be handled so you don't ruin your work, you can hit it with the blow dryer, and that'll speed along the drying process just so you can move on to the next step. So that's what I did. But if for some reason that you are crafting and you don't like this idea of using the book pages as your stem, you can go ahead and you can use that fabric tape that you would use for like flower arrangement stuff. It's green. You can use that. This one I kind of like though, because you can incorporate, you know, the book kind of thing into the design, especially if you're a book lover or something like that. Or if you don't like that the stem is going to be white, you can go ahead and paint that green, maybe nice watercolor or something like that would be good. But in any case, we're going to move on to the next step. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my rhinestone sheet here, and I'm going to take one of our stickers off here, and I'm going to go ahead and stick it. It doesn't want to, so let's hit it with the hot glue gun. But I'm going to take it and stick it to the top of the pen. Just a little dab there. And this is going to be our middle, and kind of add a little bit of sparkle to it. So that's again where that glue gun comes in handy. These little quick jobs here. Just so that the glue doesn't get too hot while you're working, I would kind of be mindful of where you are in the process when you go and heat up that glue gun, because it will get very hot, and because we're working with paper, I don't want anyone to burn their hands, because I've done that before. Okay, so the next part is going to be a series of layers. I want to jump in and add this one part before we get started, in case layers are just not your thing and you want to go like the simple route. I make these flowers all the time. This one is a little bit sloppy, but so you kind of get the idea. We're going to have like a rose at the top of our pen here. So just if you could kind of faux see that going on here. If you decide to go this route, you can do just all book pages and not have the scrapbooking paper in between. But I think that to add this in here adds a little bit of dimension to your design and kind of gives it that flower Valentine's Day kind of vibe. So you can do that. I'll show you what you need to do in a second. So we're going to do layers, and the first layer is going to be that book page thing. So in order to make our design, because we're going to be pretty much wrapping this around the pen, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut these like loops here. And just kind of keep going in a circular motion till you have almost like this spiral down the piece of paper here. And there's no really right or wrong reason to doing this. Sometimes when I start doing these things, I'm not even 100% sure how big I want to make them. And so I start, and then I see how big my flower is. And if it's too much paper, I'll just trim down. So if you can kind of see that, we have a little spiral. We don't need all this excess here, so we're just gonna trim that right there. We'll put that to the side. And kind of just reshape this around the corner here. And anything that we don't need anymore, we can of course trim off. So to make that other flower, you're basically doing this exact same thing, only you're going to take your bigger piece of paper and you're just going to continue to wrap in the same way that I'm going to show you around the pen. You're just going to keep one kind here. All right, so let's work on our first layer first. And here's where you're going to need your glue gun. I'm going to say, just to start, you're going to want to put a little layer around the whole circumference of the pen. I don't know if I talked about it before, but this is where you don't necessarily need to worry that you didn't cover everything up, because it's going to be. I need another slit here just to get us started. Okay. And if you can kind of see what I'm doing here, it's just going to be a lot of crunching these petal-like circles into the pen. So as you go around, it's going to start to look almost like a flower in bloom. So as we know, a flower has many layers, and this will allow us to kind of see all the depth. Maybe you want to imagine it as, you know, how a flower will sometimes have many colors to it. So you don't necessarily need layers and layers of glue going all the way around, but sometimes I like to add just a little bit to kind of keep my spot. And if you can kind of see what I'm doing here, I'm just going to add a little bit more. This is just going to keep blooming a little bit. So you just kind of keep crunching. You might have heard that paper rip. Don't worry about it. There's no right or wrong way. And if you can kind of, I'm going to turn it over here. See what I'm doing here? I'm trying to make it so that these leaves or these petals are not going to be like a perfect circle. So it really will look like a blooming flower. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about excess here. So I'm just about, I think, maxed out with the amount of first layer that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and just snip that right there. Take my glue gun again and put a little dab right here. And I'm going to just tap it into place. And I think I can actually trim this a little bit more. Okay. So that is your first layer of book page here. The next layer is going to be the scrapbook paper. And this one might be a little bit more of a challenge to work with just because it's thicker. But you're going to do the same thing, circular motion, make a spiral. The biggest challenge for me, I think, always is just kind of like having the patience to play with the paper and just force it into place. But sometimes you get something really, really unique if you can just kind of, you know, have the gumption to kind of stick with it. And the more, what I want to say, like chaotic your loops might be, the more you're going to have like a change in your kind of petal there. So, okay, I'm going to make another slit there. And I'm also going to add that this back here is white. That's also okay because I just think that it's going to add a little bit of color too for us. So we're going to get our glue gun again. We might need a little bit more this time. And you're just going to do the same thing, and you're going to keep kind of like shoving that petal into the pen and just kind of forcing it to just kind of mold itself in a way. So see, I'm like even folding here. And if you're worried that you're going to lose like your whole design, you can go in with your hot glue gun and start adding some dollops in there. And I think that I like doing this 3-layer kind of flower too, because then it won't make it too top heavy, and you can kind of, you know, see all that difference in there. I'm just gonna kind of squish into that. And I think we're actually about done here too. So I'm gonna snip down here just to kind of give myself an idea. Get my glue gun. And don't worry also about the glue being on here a little bit sloppy, because it can always be kind of just molded into place. It's just a matter of, please be careful so as not to burn yourself, because like the longer you're going to have your glue gun plugged in, you know, the hotter it's going to be. So maybe you even want to take breaks. That's going to be, you know, a to your discretion kind of thing. But you do have to have some patience. Here, I think actually I want to put a little bit right in there because it's fighting me a little. And then if you just kind of pinch the glue in, or the paper in to the glue, just give it a second, it will begin to stick. And then you're just going to flip these edges up so that you're going to see that pink. I need one more bit right here. I think I'll trim this a little bit right here, because that's our excess. But, you know, if you have any too, you can go ahead and hide it under the next layer. So that is our pink. And now we're going to move on to our final layer. So same thing again. Do those spiral with the loops. We're probably not going to use most of this, but again, it's hard to predict because it's just a matter of playing with the paper and seeing how you can squash it in there. And if you feel so inclined and you only want to do 2 layers, you can do that too, however the spirit moves you. So we're going to put a little bit more glue here just because we're moving on to our last layer. These you might want to make wider just because of the way the flower will be in bloom, and you're going to kind of want to push them out more from the previous layer here. So they might be like more stuck out here. I don't know if you can kind of tell what I'm doing here. This layer, just because, you know, we're already on the last one, you might need a little bit more glue just to make sure that everything is secure, because you can't push as much here. Oops. You know what? Let's do me a favor and already trim that excess off. Okay. And once you reach a point where you're like, I think that I have the most beautiful flower I've ever seen, you can go ahead and trim off the last bit of your, oops, the last bit of your loop there. And just make sure to add any kind of final final touches there. So that might be just adding a little drop of glue here and there wherever you need it. And that will dry really instantly. So I kind of want to show you before a few that I made, just to kind of give you an idea. Let's pop this camera up here. We did 3, and we put them in a nice little vase here filled with different colored stones. So now you have like a little vase for your flowers, and you can see them all shining ever so differently and lovely in this little jar here. And they're all kind of zhuzhed up for Valentine's Day. So I think they look really, really cute. Would make a definite nice gift. You could even put a little ribbon around the jar, or maybe some candies instead of the glass beads. But yeah, I think they look really, really cool. And then you have like a nice little handy spot too to grab your ink pens there. So we hope that you enjoyed this craft and that you give it a try. If you do, we'd love to see your work. Just send us a picture. We always love to hear from all of you. But in any case, enjoy, and we hope you had fun tonight. Take care, everyone.